I understand it. I'll keep the same flowing storytelling style. Human life is not ruled by logic as much as we think. It is ruled by emotions. We often believe we make decisions through careful thinking, but the truth is that most of our biggest life choices happen in emotional moments. One sentence spoken in anger can break a relationship. One decision made in fear can make you lose an opportunity. One action taken in sadness can set a person back for years. The problem is not that we have emotions. The problem is that our emotions often control us. Think about it. When someone says something hurtful to you, what really happens? Words hit your ears, reach your mind, and before you can even think, you feel a sting in your heart, heat in your chest, tension on your face. Your body reacts first, then your tongue. Later, you sit there saying, "I shouldn't have said that." That is the moment emotions took control over you. A strong person is not the one who defeats others, but the one who can handle the storm rising inside. When your heart is screaming, "Say something, shout, prove you're right," and your mind quietly whispers, "Wait, not now," that is where emotional control begins. We are taught from childhood to study, to succeed, to move ahead in life, but no one teaches us how to handle our heart when someone insults us. No one teaches us how to stay steady when we are ignored. No one teaches us how to stop jealousy from poisoning us inside. Suppressing emotions is not the solution, because suppressed emotions explode one day. Real strength is feeling emotions without becoming their slave. Anger is a natural emotion. It tells us something feels wrong. But when anger reaches the tongue, it often creates damage instead of justice. More relationships are destroyed by angry words than by actual mistakes. A wise person doesn't eliminate anger. They create a small pause between anger and reaction, just a few seconds. Those few seconds can change a life. Sadness is not the enemy either. Sadness tells you that something mattered to you. But when sadness starts convincing you that you are worthless, that you can't do anything right, that nobody understands you, then the emotion stops being truth and becomes a story your mind keeps repeating. Emotions often tell stories louder than facts, and we start believing those stories. Many people say, "I'm very soft-hearted, I get hurt easily." The issue is not having a soft heart. The issue is connecting other people's behavior to your self-worth. Someone ignores you and you assume you're unimportant. Someone criticizes you and you decide you're a failure. The truth is, people's behavior is often a reflection of their own struggles, not your value. Controlling emotions does not mean becoming cold or heartless. It means you may feel pain, but you won't fall apart every time. You may feel anger, but you won't speak every time. You may feel fear, but you won't stop moving forward every time. That is emotional strength. The greatest freedom in life is not doing whatever you feel like doing. It is being able to make the right decision despite what you feel. When someone tries to provoke you and you still remain calm, you didn't defeat them, you mastered yourself. When you have the perfect chance to give a harsh reply, but choose silence instead, that is not weakness, that is control. Slowly, a person learns that not every comment needs a reply. Not every argument needs to be won. Not every misunderstanding needs to be explained. Some things are better handed over to time. Emotions are like ocean waves. You cannot stop them from coming, but you can learn how to ride them. A wave will rise, grow high, and then fall on its own. You just have to avoid drowning in the moment. The day you learn to say, "I am not my emotions, I am the one observing them," control begins. Anger will come, you will notice it. Sadness will come, you will feel it. Fear will come, you will acknowledge it. But the decision will be yours, not the emotions. And that is real power. That is peace.
That is the skill that makes a person strong on the inside, no matter how noisy the world outside may be.
Love the flow we've started. Let's continue in the same deep conversational tone. Emotional control becomes even more important when we understand one powerful truth. Most of our emotional pain doesn't come from what happens to us, but from the meaning we attach to it. Two people can go through the same situation, and one breaks down while the other grows stronger. The difference is not the event. The difference is the interpretation. Someone doesn't reply to your message. One story says they must be busy. Another story says, I'm being ignored, I don't matter. The situation is the same, but the emotional outcome is completely different. Our mind is a storyteller, and when we don't question its stories, our emotions blindly follow them. This is why awareness is more powerful than suppression. When you feel a strong emotion rising, instead of fighting it or acting on it, pause and ask yourself, what am I telling myself right now? You'll often discover that the emotion is being fueled by an assumption, not a fact. The mind fills in gaps with negative guesses, and the heart reacts as if those guesses are reality. Another important thing to understand is that emotions are temporary, even when they feel permanent. No emotion stays at the same intensity forever. Anger peaks and falls. Sadness comes in waves. Anxiety rises and then slowly fades. But when we react during the peak of an emotion, we make permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. That's where regret is born. Learning to sit with an emotion without immediately reacting is like building a muscle. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Your mind screams for action. You want to send that message, make that call, say those words. But if you can sit through that discomfort for even a short time, you'll notice something surprising. The emotional intensity begins to drop on its own. You didn't solve the problem, but you prevented damage. Breathing plays a bigger role than most people realize. When emotions rise, breathing becomes fast and shallow. This signals to the body that there is danger, even if the danger is only emotional. By slowing your breath, you send the opposite message to your nervous system. I am safe. This simple shift can calm anger, reduce anxiety, and help you think clearly. Control of breath often becomes control of reaction. It also helps to separate feelings from identity. Saying, I feel angry is very different from saying, I am an angry person. One describes a temporary state. The other turns it into a personality. The more we label ourselves by our emotions, the less power we feel to change them. Emotions visit us. They are not who we are. There will be moments when staying calm feels unfair, when someone is wrong and you are right, when you are misunderstood, when you are treated badly. In those moments, emotional control does not mean accepting injustice. It means choosing the right time and the right way to respond, instead of letting emotion choose for you. Timing and tone often matter more than the message itself. Sometimes, the most powerful response is delay. Not denial, not avoidance, just delay. Giving yourself time creates space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies freedom. Freedom to choose words carefully, freedom to walk away, freedom to protect your peace instead of proving a point. The truth is, not every emotional trigger deserves your energy. If you react to every small irritation, every rude comment, every negative opinion, you will spend your life emotionally exhausted. Emotional maturity is deciding what is worth your reaction and what is not. Peace often comes not from control over others, but from selective attention. As you practice this, you begin to notice a shift. Situations that once ruined your whole day now pass like a brief cloud. Words that once hurt deeply now lose their power.
You still feel emotions, but they don't drag you around. You experience them without drowning in them. That is when you realize emotional control is not about becoming less human. It is about becoming more conscious, more aware, more intentional. Instead of life happening to you, you begin to participate in how you respond to life. And slowly, very quietly, you start becoming someone who is not easily shaken, not because life became easier, but because you became steadier within it.
As emotional awareness grows, another layer becomes clear. Many of our strongest reactions today are echoes from the past. Sometimes we are not only reacting to the present moment, but to old wounds that were never fully understood. A simple comment can feel like deep disrespect, not because of what was said, but because it touches an old memory of being ignored, criticized, or not feeling good enough. This is why two people can hear the same words and respond very differently. One shrugs it off, the other feels deeply hurt. The present moment is just the trigger. The emotional charge often comes from earlier experiences. When we don't recognize this, we think, this situation is unbearable, when in reality, we are carrying emotional weight from many moments, not just one. Emotional control, then, is not only about managing reactions in the moment, it is also about gently understanding yourself. Asking, why did this affect me so much, can reveal powerful insights. Maybe you fear rejection because you once felt abandoned. Maybe criticism hurts deeply because you were only praised when you were perfect. When you understand the root, the reaction begins to lose its intensity. Another truth is that tired minds create louder emotions. Lack of sleep, constant stress, and mental overload weaken emotional control. When the body is exhausted, patience shrinks. Small problems feel big, minor comments feel like attacks. Sometimes the solution to emotional overwhelm is not a deep psychological technique. It is rest, quiet, and space away from noise. We also need to accept that we cannot control how others behave. Trying to control people is one of the fastest ways to lose emotional balance. You can be kind and still be misunderstood. You can be honest and still be judged. You can give your best and still not be appreciated. When your peace depends on others acting the way you want, you give away your emotional power. Real control begins when you shift the focus from how do I make them change to how do I choose to respond. That shift alone reduces frustration. You stop waiting for the world to be fair before allowing yourself to be calm. Boundaries play a big role here. Emotional control does not mean tolerating everything. It means knowing when to step back. Some conversations don't need to continue. Some people don't need full access to your time and energy. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. When you constantly expose yourself to negativity, staying calm becomes much harder. It also helps to remember that people often speak from their own pain, not from your reality. A rude person may be carrying frustration you know nothing about. A critical person may be fighting their own feelings of inadequacy. Understanding this does not excuse bad behavior, but it stops you from absorbing it personally. You learn to see behavior as information, not as a verdict on your worth. As you grow emotionally, you begin choosing long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. The quick pleasure of winning an argument loses its appeal when you realize it costs you hours of mental disturbance. The urge to say something sharp fades when you see how heavy it feels afterwards. You begin to value inner stability more than momentary emotional release. There's also strength in admitting emotions honestly, to yourself first. Saying, I feel hurt, I feel jealous,
or "I feel insecure" without judgment reduces their hidden power. Emotions grow stronger in denial and weaker in awareness. When you can name what you feel without shame, you create space between you and the emotion. Over time, you notice a quiet confidence developing. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. You don't react to everything. You don't chase every misunderstanding. You don't feel the need to prove yourself in every conversation. That calmness is not indifference, it is emotional discipline. And the beautiful part is this: the more control you have over your emotions, the less others can control you. Provocation loses power, criticism loses its sting, delays lose their frustration. You are no longer a puppet pulled by every external string. You become the one holding the strings of your own responses. That is when emotional control turns into emotional freedom. The freedom to stay grounded even when life is uncertain, people are unpredictable, and situations are not in your favor. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you learned how to feel without losing yourself.
There comes a stage in emotional growth where you start noticing your triggers before they fully take over. Earlier, emotions would explode suddenly, like a storm with no warning. Now, you sense the clouds gathering, a slight tightness in your chest, a change in your thoughts, a familiar irritation. That early awareness is powerful because once you can recognize the beginning of an emotion, you have a much better chance of guiding it instead of being dragged by it. Triggers are not random. They usually connect to things we deeply care about: respect, love, attention, fairness, success. When one of these feels threatened, emotions rise quickly. The goal is not to remove triggers completely. That's impossible. The goal is to understand them so they don't surprise you every time. When you know that being ignored triggers you, or being corrected in public makes you defensive, you can prepare your response in advance. Preparation changes everything. Instead of reacting automatically, you start choosing intentionally. You might decide, if this topic comes up, I will stay calm and speak slowly, or if I feel disrespected, I will take a breath before replying. These small mental agreements with yourself build emotional discipline over time. Another powerful shift happens when you stop seeing discomfort as danger. Many emotional reactions come from the mind trying to escape discomfort as quickly as possible. Awkward silence, criticism, uncertainty, waiting. These feel uncomfortable, so the mind pushes you to act fast just to end the feeling. But not all discomfort is harmful. Sometimes it is just growth happening. Learning to sit in mild emotional discomfort without rushing to fix it strengthens your inner stability. You also begin to notice how much of emotional chaos comes from the need to be validated. Wanting to be understood is human. Wanting appreciation is natural. But when your emotional state depends completely on others approving you, life becomes a roller coaster. One compliment lifts you up, one negative comment brings you down. Emotional control grows when your sense of worth becomes more internal than external. This doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop depending on constant approval to feel okay. You can listen to feedback without collapsing. You can accept praise without becoming addicted to it. Your emotional balance becomes less fragile. Forgiveness, too, becomes part of emotional freedom, not always for others, but for yourself. Many people stay emotionally reactive because they are secretly angry at their own past mistakes. Guilt and regret sit quietly in the background, making you more sensitive, more defensive. When you begin forgiving yourself for not knowing better in the past, your emotional reactions in the present soften. Letting go is another skill that strengthens control. Not every memory needs to be replayed. Not every injustice needs to be carried forever. Holding on to emotional pain feels like control, but it actually keeps you tied to the past.
Letting go does not mean saying what happened was okay. It means deciding that your peace today is more important than your pain from yesterday. As this mindset deepens, patience naturally increases. You don't rush conversations. You don't panic over delays. You don't assume the worst immediately. You give situations room to breathe, and often things resolve themselves without the emotional drama you once would have added. With time, people might even start noticing the change in you. They might say you've become calmer, quieter, more mature. What they are really seeing is not silence, it is self-regulation. It is the ability to feel without exploding, to care without clinging, to face difficulty without falling apart. Emotional control doesn't make life emotionless. You still feel joy deeply, love strongly, excitement fully. In fact, when you are not constantly overwhelmed by negative emotions, you have more space to experience positive ones. Peace creates room for happiness. And you realize something simple but life-changing. You cannot always choose what you feel in the first moment, but you can choose what you do next. In that small space between feeling and action lies the power to shape your relationships, your decisions, and ultimately, your life. As emotional control becomes a habit, you start to notice something subtle but life-changing. You no longer feel the need to win every emotional moment. Earlier, if someone misunderstood you, you felt restless until you explained yourself. If someone judged you, you mentally argued with them for hours. If something felt unfair, you replayed it again and again in your mind. Now, you begin to ask a different question. Is my peace worth more than being right? This question shifts your energy. You realize that many emotional battles are optional. Not every opinion about you needs correction. Not every misunderstanding needs a long explanation. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Sometimes, protecting your mental space is wiser than proving a point. You also begin to understand the difference between reacting from ego and responding from self-respect. Ego says, "How dare they?" Self-respect says, "I don't need to lower myself for this." Ego wants to win the moment. Self-respect wants to protect long-term dignity. Emotional control grows stronger when you choose dignity over drama. There is also a deep calm that comes from accepting that you cannot control people's perceptions. Some people will misunderstand you no matter how clearly you speak. Some will dislike you without truly knowing you. Some will judge you based on their own insecurities. When you stop trying to manage every perception, you free yourself from a heavy emotional burden. Another layer of emotional maturity is learning when to walk away internally, even if you cannot walk away physically. You might still be in the same workplace, the same family, the same social circle, but you stop engaging emotionally in every small conflict. You become more selective about where you invest your emotional energy. Not cold, not careless, just intentional. Gratitude also plays a quiet but powerful role in emotional balance. When the mind constantly focuses on what is missing, emotions become heavy and restless. When you regularly notice what is still good, still working, still present in your life, your emotional baseline shifts. Problems still exist, but they no longer define your entire emotional state. You begin to see that emotions are signals, not commands. Anger may signal a boundary was crossed. Sadness may signal a loss. Fear may signal uncertainty. But a signal is meant to inform you, not control you. Once you receive the message, you can decide the response calmly instead of acting immediately under emotional pressure. There is also strength in slowing down your emotional pace. Fast emotions often lead to fast mistakes, quick replies, instant assumptions, rushed conclusions. These create unnecessary damage. When you slow down your reactions, you give wisdom time to catch up with feelings. Over time, emotional control shapes your relationships in powerful ways.
People feel safer talking to you because they know you won't explode easily. Conflicts become more respectful. Conversations become more thoughtful. Your calm presence can even reduce the intensity of others' emotions. Stability is contagious, just like chaos is. Most importantly, you begin to trust yourself more. Earlier, strong emotions made you doubt your decisions. You worried about what you might say or do when upset. Now you know that even if emotions rise, you have the ability to pause, think, and choose wisely. That self-trust creates deep inner security. Life will still test you. There will still be unfair moments, painful experiences, unexpected losses. Emotional control does not remove difficulty from life. It changes how deeply those difficulties shake you. Instead of being thrown off balance every time, you bend without breaking. And in that steadiness, you discover a quiet kind of power. Not loud, not aggressive, just grounded. The kind of power that allows you to stay kind in a harsh moment, patient in a stressful one, silent when silence is wiser, and firm when firmness is needed. That is the real beauty of emotional control. It does not make you less human, it makes you a more conscious one, someone who feels deeply but chooses wisely.
At this stage, emotional control starts shaping not just your reactions, but your entire outlook on life. You begin to notice how much suffering used to come from resisting reality. You wanted people to behave differently, situations to unfold differently, the past to have been different. That silent resistance created constant emotional tension. But as awareness grows, you slowly learn the art of acceptance. Acceptance does not mean liking everything that happens. It means acknowledging what is real without adding emotional drama on top of it. When something goes wrong, instead of immediately thinking, "Why does this always happen to me?" you begin to think, "This is difficult, but it's part of life." That small shift in thinking softens emotional intensity and makes space for practical solutions. You also become more comfortable with uncertainty. Earlier, not knowing what would happen next created anxiety. Your mind rushed to predict, control, and plan every outcome. Now, you understand that uncertainty is not a threat, it is a normal part of being alive. Trying to control every possibility only exhausts you emotionally. Learning to say, "I will handle it when it comes," brings a deep sense of calm. Comparison loses some of its power too. A lot of emotional pain comes from looking at others and feeling behind, less successful, less happy, less appreciated. But as emotional control strengthens, you realize everyone is fighting battles you cannot see. Social masks hide real struggles. When you stop measuring your life against edited versions of others, jealousy slowly fades and contentment grows. You begin to respond to yourself with more kindness as well. Instead of criticizing yourself harshly for every mistake, you speak internally with more patience. You understand that growth is not linear. Some days you will be calm and balanced. Other days, emotions may still take over. Emotional control is a practice, not perfection. Being gentle with yourself during setbacks prevents additional emotional damage. Another sign of growth is learning to pause before absorbing others' emotional states. Earlier, if someone came to you angry or stressed, you immediately felt the same. Now there's a small mental boundary. You can care without carrying. You can listen without drowning. You offer support without losing your own balance. That emotional separation protects your inner peace. Silence becomes more comfortable too. You don't feel the need to fill every gap with words or defend yourself in every quiet moment. You understand that not every silence is negative. Sometimes silence is space for emotions to settle, for thoughts to organize, for wisdom to appear. Comfort with silence often reflects comfort within yourself. Gradually, you start choosing your emotional environment more carefully. The conversations you engage in, the content you consume, the people you spend time with, all of these affect your emotional state. You become more aware that constant negativity, gossip, and conflict drain your emotional energy. Protecting your environment becomes part of protecting your mind. There's also a growing ability to let moments pass without holding on to them. Earlier, a small embarrassment could stay in your mind for days. A rude comment could replay for weeks. Now, you feel it, learn from it if needed, and allow it to move on. You stop collecting emotional wounds as if they are part of your identity. With this comes a deeper sense of presence. Instead of living in past regrets or future worries, you spend more time in the current moment. You notice simple things, a quiet morning, a kind gesture, a small success. These moments may seem ordinary, but they bring emotional stability that constant mental noise once covered up. You realize emotional control is not about suppressing life, it is about experiencing it with balance. You still care, still love, still hope, but with less fear of being overwhelmed. You trust that no matter what emotion arises, you have the tools to face it without losing yourself. And in that trust, a quiet resilience is born. Life still moves with ups and downs, but you no longer feel like you're on an emotional roller coaster with no seatbelt. You're seated, aware, steady, ready to experience the ride without being thrown off every sharp turn.
The biggest challenges in life often don't come as huge problems. They come in small daily moments. Someone ignores you, someone criticizes unnecessarily, someone doesn't meet your expectations. These tiny shocks stir your emotions. But a person who has mastered emotional control knows how to use even these small moments to maintain their inner peace. They understand that every moment is a choice, a reaction, or calmness. We often tie other people's behavior to our self-worth. Someone speaks harshly and we assume we are inadequate. Someone doesn't appreciate us and we decide we are failing. In reality, most people's behavior reflects their own story, not your value. Once you realize this, a heavy burden lifts from your heart. Controlling emotions does not mean becoming cold or unfeeling. It means feeling emotions without being enslaved by them. Anger comes, but you notice it without letting it spill out. Fear comes, but you acknowledge it without letting it dictate your actions. Sadness comes, but you accept it without drowning in it. This builds inner strength and calm, which remain unaffected by the chaos of the outside world. In daily life, it's also important to manage your environment and the company you keep. Protect yourself from negative people, pointless arguments, and unnecessary criticism. Avoiding what harms your peace is part of emotional control. This doesn't make you indifferent, it means you've learned to safeguard your inner balance. The most important lesson is that mastering emotions is an ongoing practice. Every day strengthens your emotional awareness and internal power. You learn that not every moment requires an immediate response, not every comment demands anger, and not every criticism deserves weight. Your goal becomes maintaining clarity and calm within yourself. By doing this, you don't just improve your reactions, you make your life experiences more meaningful. You feel, but your decisions are no longer controlled by emotion. You handle relationships with wisdom, respond to conflicts with patience, and stay grounded through the small and large challenges of life. This is how a person becomes truly emotionally strong and unshakable from within. Peace and strength accompany you in every difficult moment because you have learned that it is possible to feel deeply and still remain in control. The biggest challenges in life often don't come as huge problems. They come in small daily moments. Someone ignores you. Someone criticizes unnecessarily. Someone doesn't meet your expectations. These tiny shocks stir your emotions.
But a person who has mastered emotional control knows how to use even these small moments to maintain their inner peace. They understand that every moment is a choice, a reaction, or calmness. We often tie other people's behavior to our self-worth. Someone speaks harshly and we assume we are inadequate. Someone doesn't appreciate us and we decide we are failing. In reality, most people's behavior reflects their own story, not your value. Once you realize this, a heavy burden lifts from your heart. Controlling emotions does not mean becoming cold or unfeeling. It means feeling emotions without being enslaved by them. Anger comes, but you notice it without letting it spill out. Fear comes, but you acknowledge it without letting it dictate your actions. Sadness comes, but you accept it without drowning in it. This builds inner strength and calm, which remain unaffected by the chaos of the outside world. In daily life, it's also important to manage your environment and the company you keep. Protect yourself from negative people, pointless arguments, and unnecessary criticism. Avoiding what harms your peace is part of emotional control. This doesn't make you indifferent, it means you've learned to safeguard your inner balance. The most important lesson is that mastering emotions is an ongoing practice. Every day strengthens your emotional awareness and internal power. You learn that not every moment requires an immediate response. Not every comment demands anger, and not every criticism deserves weight. Your goal becomes maintaining clarity and calm within yourself. By doing this, you don't just improve your reactions, you make your life experiences more meaningful. You feel, but your decisions are no longer controlled by emotion. You handle relationships with wisdom, respond to conflicts with patience, and stay grounded through the small and large challenges of life. This is how a person becomes truly emotionally strong and unshakable from within. Peace and strength accompany you in every difficult moment because you have learned that it is possible to feel deeply and still remain in control.
At this stage, you start noticing that many of your strongest emotional reactions are echoes from the past. You are not only reacting to the present moment, but to old wounds that were never fully healed. A simple comment can feel like a deep insult, not because of what is said, but because it touches on a memory of being ignored, criticized, or undervalued. This explains why two people can experience the same situation and respond very differently. One person shrugs it off, while the other feels deeply hurt. The present moment is just a trigger. The real emotional charge often comes from earlier experiences. Without recognizing this, we mistakenly believe that a situation is unbearable when in reality, we are carrying emotional weight from multiple past events. Emotional control, therefore, is not only about managing reactions in the moment, it is also about understanding yourself gently. Asking, "Why did this affect me so much?" can reveal powerful insights. Maybe fear of rejection stems from past abandonment. Maybe criticism hurts because you were only praised when perfect. Understanding the root causes diminishes the intensity of your reactions. Another important factor is mental and physical fatigue. Tired minds create louder emotions. Sleep deprivation, stress, and constant mental load weaken emotional control. Sometimes the solution to overwhelming emotions isn't a complex technique, it's rest, space, and calm. You also learn to accept that you cannot control how others behave. Trying to change people is one of the fastest ways to lose your emotional balance. You can be kind without being taken advantage of. You can be honest without being judged unfairly. You can do your best without requiring appreciation. When your peace doesn't depend on others' actions, your emotional power grows.
Real control begins when you shift your focus from how can I make them change to how do I choose to respond. That shift alone reduces frustration. You stop waiting for the world to be fair before you allow yourself calm. Boundaries become a vital part of emotional management. Emotional control doesn't mean tolerating everything. It means knowing when to step back. Some conversations don't need engagement. Some people don't need access to your energy. Protecting your peace is not selfish, it is essential. Constant exposure to negativity makes calmness nearly impossible. You also realize that people often speak from their own pain, not from your reality. A rude person may be frustrated in ways you cannot see. A critical person may be insecure. Understanding this does not excuse bad behavior, but prevents you from internalizing it. You learn to treat others' actions as information, not judgments on your worth. As this awareness grows, you begin prioritizing long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. The instant gratification of winning an argument loses appeal when you realize the cost is hours of emotional turmoil. The impulse to retaliate diminishes when you see how heavy it feels afterward. Inner stability becomes more valuable than momentary release. Acknowledging emotions honestly is a powerful skill. Saying, "I feel hurt," or "I feel insecure" without judgment reduces their power. Emotions grow stronger in denial and weaker when recognized. Naming feelings without shame creates space between you and the emotion itself. Slowly, a quiet confidence develops. You no longer react to every comment or disturbance. You no longer chase every misunderstanding. You don't need to prove yourself constantly. That calmness is not indifference, it is emotional discipline. Life will continue to test you with unfairness, pain, and loss. Emotional control does not remove difficulty, it changes how deeply challenges affect you. Instead of being tossed by every situation, you bend without breaking. In that steadiness, a quiet power emerges, not loud or aggressive, just grounded. You can remain kind in harsh moments, patient in stressful ones, silent when necessary, and firm when needed. This is the true beauty of emotional control. It doesn't make you less human. It makes you more conscious, more intentional, and capable of feeling deeply while still choosing your actions wisely.